Now we welcome Republican Congressman Jeb Hensarling from Texas, Democratic Congressman Billy Pascrell from New Jersey. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Hey, Larry, thanks for having us.
Jeb, let me begin with you. Not a single Republican voted for this stimulus package. Can you tell us why? Can you tell us what your party caucus is thinking?
Well, the bill is a stimulus bill, but it's a bill to stimulate big government. It's not a bill to stimulate the economy. Even if you're a Keynesian, which, by the way, most of us are not, you've got less than 4% of this spending, Larry, to do anything on roads and bridges, concrete and asphalt. You got about 17% of it in tax relief, but less than 4% of it in anything we could call pro-growth tax relief that would create more jobs. The Republicans put forth an alternative that would put money in the hands of small businesses to preserve jobs and grow jobs. The Republican alternative would lower marginal rates for struggling families and ensure we do it in a way that doesn't send the bill to our children and grandchildren. And the Democrat alternative is funding Amtrak, the National Endowment for Arts, a new after-school lunch program. Listen, these programs may be good in and of themselves, but they're certainly not economic stimulus programs. And at the end of the day, it leaves $1.2 trillion of debt for our children and grandchildren. That's unconscionable.
Let me go to Bill Pascrell. Bill, thank you for coming on. Happy New Year. Look, one of the staggering things to me about this bill, it began in Mr. Obama's conversation 6 or 8 weeks ago as an infrastructure spending bill that would create some jobs. I believe that would create some jobs. Turns out, out of close to $600 billion of spending, only $30 billion is set aside for highways and roads. And Bill, of that $30 billion, which itself is a tiny fraction of the total, most of it won't get spent out for 2 years. Now, how did this happen? How did the Democrats let this thing get so out of hand with so little infrastructure spending that is not what the public thought it was getting?
Larry, I have the greatest respect for you and Jeb, but you are absolutely wrong on this one. I'm glad no Republican voted for it. We've aired this thing out many times. I think this was a great balance between investment, and investment is not only infrastructure and transit money. Investment means tax cuts to small businesses so that they can invest, so that they can hire people, the help with Medicaid to the states. If the states don't do it, if they don't get revenue in, if they have to raise taxes, we're in worse shape than we are. And finally, the health part of this, which I think is very important, those people are out of work, getting COBRA. This is a good plan. The enemy of the good is the perfect. We're never going to have a seamless program here. I think it will get people to work.
But Bill, let me challenge you on this.
President Obama, just one more point.
You are one of my favorite Democrats. You are one of my favorite congressmen, for God's sakes. But let me challenge you on this. If I add the business tax cuts, which I think could be better, lower the rates on business, but whatever. If I add the business tax cuts, this is the Wall Street Journal editorial today, plus the infrastructure, only 12 cents on the dollar could be construed as being pro-growth. And you talk about aid to the states. This thing is loaded up with social spending and transfer programs, 83 billion refundable credits, 81 billion Medicaid, 20 billion food stamps. These are not, maybe they're good, but maybe they should be broken out into a separate bill and voted on. I'm not saying that social spending is all bad, Bill Pascrell, but I'm saying there isn't an economist worth his or her salt that would say that'll grow the economy. And that's where the difference is. And why don't you break them out and have a separate vote?
You're a better barometer than the Wall Street Journal. We've been there and done that. 2001, 2003, 2005. They defended these tax cuts. We knew what was happening in the summer of 2001. We knew that these were not paid for. And today, the opposite, the loyal opposition, even tries to get the AMT patch into this legislation. When we passed it, as you know, and did away with it last year, paid for it, they wouldn't support that.
Well, you know, Jeb Hensarling, let me go back to you. First of all, I think the AMT patch from Senator Grassley is a terrific idea. It will help some people. But Leader John Boehner, Jeb, said that this measure won't create many jobs. He says there's a GOP alternative comprised almost entirely of tax cuts. Now, you got 170 votes for that, which isn't bad, probably more than people thought. Can you give us a brief overview of your tax cut alternative, and would this qualify as an economic choice, not an echo?
Well, absolutely, Larry. Number one, we would reduce marginal rates We would take people from the 15% bracket to the 10% bracket, the 10% bracket to the 5% bracket. Not only does that help people put food on the table, send their kids to college, but it also helps small entrepreneurs, since you know a lot of this tax liability is a pass-through. In addition, we have tax relief for small businesses, a 20% exclusion. We're putting capital in the hands of the people who actually produce jobs. And by the way, using the Democrat model from the White House that said that the Congressional Democrat plan will produce 3.5 million jobs, using their exact same model, we create twice as many jobs at half the cost, using their multiplier effect. Again, it's a classic choice for the American people.
Where's that number come from, Jeb? That estimate? I know that you all had a presser today. Where's that come from?
That comes from the designate of the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. It has a 2.2 to 3 multiplier effect on the tax relief, and this is President Obama's
This is Christy
chairman.
Romer. This is from Christy Romer's famous paper that she wrote with her husband. Absolutely.
And it's the exact same methodology they use to produce their figure.
All right, Bill Pascrell, let me ask you this. Alice Rivlin, former Clinton administration advisor, an old and valued friend of mine, a very smart economist, she testified yesterday or gave a speech. She said, why don't you cut this bill in half? Why don't you just start over again, cut it in half, take the short-term stuff and keep it, and let the long-term stuff percolate. Let's take a look at it. Let's see if it makes any sense. I mean, I think, Billy, you got a problem. The sheer size of the spending and deficits here looks so unmanageable to the American public. They doubt the growth impact, and they're worried that how can you all manage this process?
I think we can do tax cuts. We're not raising anyone's taxes in this legislation. We are not going to give tax cuts to the top 1% of the population. We've done that. We've been there. It has not worked. It has not produced economic investment into the economy or produced jobs. I don't believe at this particular point we have an extraordinary situation here, Larry. You've said it yourself. We need extraordinary means. We cannot act as if this is a bill that can go through the entire process and then we'll see what happens come May. People need relief right away. You know how many people are being lost every day into the unemployment ranks. Those people are losing their insurance. They need help immediately. We can't sit on our hands. I know the Congress would like to do that. We're like a huge dinosaur. We got to act now.
I just think rushing pell-mell through this. Jeb Hensarling, Billy Pascrell mentioned repealing the Bush tax cuts.
Larry,
I'm going to give you the last word, Jeb.
We need to make the tax relief permanent. That's what historically has created jobs. We don't have faith, we have evidence.
All right, gentlemen. Jeb Hensarling, Bill Pascrell, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.